This is probably a word you have heard before if you have ever heard the Apostles' Creed. There's chunks of this passage that are in there in such a strong way. Seated at the right hand of God, he is at there, and the angels of the authorities bending near him. But rather than that, because I think we know that very well, I'd like to take a second and look at the first part, the actual instruction to the people. The last half is wonderful. It's good theology, helping us understand the nature of Christ and who this Christ is who gave himself for us. But this is interesting that the instruction was actually the very first thing. If we are going to be doing good work, we have to be prepared, Peter says. Doing good work has a lot to do with good preparation. It is much, much harder to do good work if we are ill-prepared for the task. Think about from our own lives. It is only when I have all my ingredients, my measuring spoons, my bowls, my pots and pans together, that I can cook the best. And if I want to play well on the football field, I need to be prepared as well, don't I? Not, of course, the equipment, the pads, the jersey, the cleats, but also the practice that goes in for months and sometimes even years before game day. If I am not prepared, there's no way I'm going to be a useful player. In practically any way, at least that I can think of, to produce our best, we need to be ready. Now, truly, I will say, merry accidents do happen. The unintended blessings that cover up our lack of preparation. These are the times of our lives that prompt us to look around and tell onlookers, I meant to do that. Have you ever had a time like that in your life? Such as a rookie nailing a hole-in-one, or a happy accident in the kitchen that actually wasn't too bad. These are fortuitous accidents that make it look like we have skill. And they do happen. I think most of us have had at least one. But they are accidents, and we cannot depend on them. To depend on accidents is asking for a problem. It's asking to be foolhardy. So again, one of the best ways that we can encourage good work requires that I need to be prepared to do good work. When we don't prepare, what often comes out is less than our best. As a personal example of this, although it's a little hard to talk about, it could be said that the role of the minister is basically one that comes down to explaining. We explain how scriptures apply to daily life. We try to explain God's justice and grace. We try to explain ancient languages and ancient people to modern ears. We try to explain church doctrine and polity. But even with all this experience in explaining, even ministers can sometimes be caught unaware, and sometimes let our lack of planning show through. It was fun for me to be a professional for so many years before I had a child. And I thought I was all ready for questions until she turned 4. And the questions never stop. I was coming back from a funeral one day, and Ariana is very curious about what I do for a living. And I said, well, I had a funeral. What's that? Well, it's where we bury somebody and say goodbye. Why do you bury them? Well, because that's our tradition. Don't they need to breathe? No, honey, they don't need to breathe anymore. They're dead. Why'd they die? Because sometimes the body stops working, trying to stop this conversation. Daddy, will my body stop working? And at that point, Daddy starts crying, because who wants to think about that? In her gentle way of asking as a 4-year-old, she showed me that I really had not been prepared to talk about this. I had been ministering on this for 15 years, but I really could not answer the basic questions of a 4-year-old without becoming emotional myself. And you might say, how can you prepare for that? But you can. We all know those questions are coming. Right, friends? In our second reading this morning, as I mentioned, Peter is addressing a community that wasn't sure how they should prepare. They didn't quite have 4-year-olds. Well, they might have. But it is clear from the letter that the people felt like they were under siege. They felt like they were being attacked by someone or something. According to Peter, the people, in the midst of all this battle, are supposed to do what is right. They're supposed to do good work, he says. Now, it's hard to do your good work, but it's even harder when you're feeling attacked, isn't it? Have you ever had a time in your professional life, or maybe from friends or family, where you felt attacked? Where you felt somebody was not treating you well? Or maybe in the middle of an illness, being attacked by your own body, or attacked by culture. We all know these stresses, and we know that when we feel attacked, as if someone's out to get us, it's hard to muster our best. Peter understands this. And so he says that while you are to work, that is, you are to do what your faith demands of you, you are still supposed to be prepared. He says you know this attack is coming. You know there is going to be hardship. You know the questions are around the corner if they're not facing you right now. So be smart about it. Prepare for them. He says, in your heart, sanctify Christ as Lord. First and foremost, Jesus is the Christ. And then he says, always be ready to make... I'm sorry, sweet pea. We all have days like that. Always be ready to make your defense to anyone who demands of you. So say Christ is Lord, but then be ready with your defense. Ready for your defense before the attack comes. Can you imagine trying to build up fortifications after you see the enemy? Wouldn't be very effective, would it? If you want to be ready, build them before. Be ready with an accounting for the hope that is in you. Now that's different, isn't it? Not only am I not supposed to give up into intimidation or to get caught up in fear, but I'm supposed to be ready to defend why I have hope. I am supposed to be ready when the life is handing me problems to say, why am I a Christian? I am supposed to be prepared in the face of hardships to talk about my own life and the grace I find in God. I am supposed to be ready with my answer. And not only that, but as Peter writes, we are not to repay evil for evil or abuse for abuse, but on the contrary, repay with a blessing. So instead of attacking back when someone pokes me, Peter, like Jesus, encourages the people to kill them with kindness and to talk about grace. Friends, this is still our world. We might be far removed from that first century where Peter wrote to his people, but we still do find ourselves attacked, don't we? We still are facing problems in our life where people say, this isn't good. You aren't good. Get out or get away. In the face of our attackers, we need to be ready with our defense. Not an attack back, for that just encourages us all to be blind and toothless, but a response of hope, saying that even in the midst of these problems, I still have hope in the Lord. Even in the midst of everything I'm dealing with, I hear that God loves me, and I'm His adopted child. I have a family, and they will never forsake me. I need to be ready before that attack comes. For if we are not ready, we cannot do our best, and we lose our footing. When I feel attacked without remembering the grace of God, I feel my whole world shaken because I depend so much on other people's opinions. But when I hold true to that grace, when I see myself as an adopted child, when I see my place in the family of God, even when someone throws a stone, my base does not wiggle. Let us be ready for the attacks. Let us have an answer, friends. So here's what I want you to do. I want to encourage you to prepare. Prepare now. Don't wait. Don't put it on your calendar. Prepare now. Get ready so that you too can do the good work, that you can share the good news by talking about how you have been included. Let us all have our answer ready, for we know we are going to be asked. We know we are going to be attacked. In one way or another, sooner or later, it's going to happen. So let us prepare now our response of faith. right now or when we get home or over this long weekend. And fortuitously enough, we have a long weekend. Let us be ready in our lives to point towards Christ. Be ready to speak about God's grace. Let us be ready to reflect as we have been loved, rather than relying upon fortuitous accidents to somehow keep us. Friends, if we were all ready to do good work, if we were all ready to point towards the grace of God, think about what effect we could have. Not escalating the arguments, not promoting the violence, but working for unity in the family of God.